Happy Thursday to you. Welcome into Morning JOX, JOX 94.5 on this 26th day of the month of February. Got to give a shout out to my sister. Happy birthday, Jasmine. Hope you have a wonderful day. Make sure them kids up and getting ready to go to school this morning. Keep the 30s warm for me. And I'll see it in a couple of years. But again, happy birthday. But man, oh man, the SEC on Tuesday night. I don't know how else to describe it, except that it was a massacre for some teams, and some good teams in particular. We saw some highly ranked teams absolutely get dismantled. We had a feeling that Alabama seemed to have gotten some things right after their win over Kentucky over the weekend, but they just didn't. They didn't just double down on their play. They absolutely meleeed the Mississippi State Bulldogs last night in Coleman Coliseum. And really, I mean, you could say it was close probably 5 minutes into the game. And then you realize, okay, Alabama is not playing, absolutely shooting the lights out. I mean, it was just a complete and total domination over Mississippi State. 111-73. And I mean, this is by far the best game Alabama has played. By far. I mean, offensively, and me and Conrad, we have talked about this time after time after time of Chris Youngblood. At some point, you've got to play like you did at South Florida. He picked a perfect time against the 24th ranked team in the nation, the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I don't know what else to say. I mean, Chris Youngblood led Alabama with 27 points. Mark Sears give you 21. Moby Diabate gives you 10 from the bench. Aiden Holloway gives you 13 from the bench. And I mean, just a complete overhaul where it felt as though, if you're Mark Sears, okay, finally somebody decided to step up. And this was I don't know how else to describe it except just belt the ass. That's all you got from Alabama last night.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think this is probably the best game. It's certainly the best game you played in a while, but maybe the best game that you played all season. And all the scoring and stuff you were just talking about was great, but, the first half, especially in the first half, the defense was you could just tell they had a different kind of sense of urgency about them. And, whether it's, just Nate Oates harping on it, the last couple of games or, I don't know what it was. Maybe you felt rested because you got back-to-back home games and you were getting off the road, something like that. But, to come out and play like that, to start the game. And again, like you said, I mean, it was close for the first 4 or 5 minutes, right? It was 6-5, 6-4, something, whatever. And it was just kind of going back and forth a little bit. And then Alabama just absolutely took off. But, again, I mean, he mentioned it after the game. He said, I think that was the first time Alabama's had a lead at the first media timeout since the Arkansas game. So it's been a couple weeks since you've had that. And so that was nice to see. But, defensively, I thought in the first half that was probably the best defense you've seen Alabama play all year. I mean, they were flying all over the court. And you could tell it wasn't a case where, and obviously, when you're shooting the ball well, you're going to play better on the defensive end, right? Playing good offense is going to lead to good defense and vice versa. And so that certainly helped them. But, they had a little something about them. It was okay, we need to make sure we leave no doubt. We handle our business here because we know what our next 3 games are going to look like against 3 of the top teams in the country. And that's what they did. So, yeah, I mean, Chris Youngblood, man, I mean, can we just play Mississippi State every game? Because, I mean, his 2 best games this year have both come against Mississippi State. The big difference this time was Hubbard didn't go for 38. He had 21. He only had 6 in the first half, I think, 5 or 6 points. And so that was very, very helpful for Alabama. But, yeah, I mean, just overall, I mean, it's the most points they've scored all season, 111. Would have been nice to have that when Missouri scored 110 last week, but you'll take it now. But, yeah, I mean, this is one you needed to get this one at home and to see Alabama like we were, hearing from people yesterday. It's like you just want to see a complete game from Alabama. And, okay, yeah, maybe down the stretch you got a little lax because you're up 30 points late in a basketball game. It is what it is. But, anytime you get the walk-ons a chance to get on the court, that's generally means you had a pretty good night.
Yeah, and you could tell they were trying to get the walk on a bucket. And then the shot he did take.
Oh, yeah, when it got stuffed, it was like, oh, man.
It's like, big dog. Come on, man.
But that was cool, though, to see the players, like, they're like, all right, we're going to try to get you a shot. Okay, it's not going to work. And then, boom, you had, Cheryl and
Right.
Holloway. They're like, all right, we'll just hit another three. It's fine.
But, I mean, this was complete domination from Alabama, 52% from the field, 22 of 45 from three. First off, you're shooting 45 threes is absolutely insane. But hit 22 of them. Yeah, like you had they had a mission. I think Alabama, to your point, was kind of they're in that mode of, okay, now's the time to turn it on. And I think defensively, that's the effort it's going to take in order to, at this point, survive in advance, because we know what the end of the regular season looks like for Alabama, but also giving you some momentum heading into the SEC tournament, onto the NCAA tournament. But this is what you needed to see from Alabama. And I think if you're an Alabama fan, you got to feel ecstatic of what you saw last night. Because, again, this was a 24 ranked team in the nation in Mississippi State, a team that, I mean, their style is mostly physical. They're really known for the defensive side of the ball, and they couldn't stop Alabama from hitting threes. And I think that this is what you wanted to see. And I think Alabama defensively they really handled their business.
Yeah, it was good to see, heading into, obviously, when you have a game like this, it was similar to, the Texas game before the first IBOB, where you're like, man, are you going to be able to carry this shooting over to the next game? And, let's be honest, like, probably not going to go 22 of 45 against Tennessee over the weekend. If you do, something went horribly wrong for Tennessee defensively, which would be great, but I don't see that one happening. But that's always your thing is, all right, now you got to go and you've got to play another very physical team, and you've got to go on the road. And as a team that, as we know, Tennessee, they kind of harp on their defense, and that's their calling card. So you've got to be able to carry this over. But at least for right now, and we'll talk about the other games and somebody losing that may have helped Alabama and Tennessee, at least as far as the seeding goes right now. But yeah, I mean, this is a good time to play arguably your best game of the year. It's just now you've got to be able to carry that over into the next few games. And, but I think this was more of just it was a morale booster, right? Because, I mean, we all know how good Alabama can be. And regardless of what happens these next couple of games, I mean, worst case scenario, they might be a 2 seed or whatever. And you don't want to see them going in to the SEC tournament on a losing streak or anything like that. But, it just felt more of like a reminder of, oh, yeah, this is why Alabama has been viewed as, maybe Auburn's been the best team in the country for the majority of the year, but Alabama's been right behind them with, Duke or Florida or Houston or Tennessee or, whatever the other teams you want to throw in that conversation are. I think last night was a reminder of, okay, when Alabama plays their best basketball, none of the other 363 Division I teams were beating Alabama last night, based on the way that they were playing. So that was cool to see. That was 10th quad one win of the season, which is second most behind Auburn. They have 14, so nobody's going to catch them. But you get to double-digit quad one wins, and yeah, so you're in a pretty good spot now. It's just, you're looking at these next 3 games, and I think after a performance like that, you're starting to think, all right, like, let's go win all 3 of these games and leave no doubt about who should be a 1 seed and clearly the second best team in the SEC. So we'll see how it goes down the stretch here. But I would imagine that that helped you out big time last night.
Yeah, and to your point, somebody talking about something else that helped you out. How about those Florida Gators, the number 3 ranked team in the nation in the old Florida-Georgia line battle? They took a trip to Athens, Georgia. And if you watch this game, now the final score, Georgia knocks off Florida 88-83. But at one point during the game, Georgia was up by 26 points against the Florida Gators.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about a bad night? And if you're Georgia, this is one of those games you absolutely needed to, like, hey, there's a reason why we're on the bubble. Like, now we are a tournament team. You can't deny it because they absolutely manhandled Florida. And I know, Florida came back and made it look respectful, but at no point did you feel as though Florida was going to win that basketball game. Georgia absolutely. Georgia played tough against Auburn over the weekend, but if you would have told me they were going to go out there and at one point be up by 26 points against the Florida Gators, I'm like, okay, did Florida just play bad, or No, Georgia just absolutely took that game from them. And at no point did you feel comfortable as a Florida Gator fan that you were going to come back and win that ball game.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time late because Florida did take the lead at one point with like, I don't know what, 2 minutes left to go, something like that. And at that point, it did feel like, okay, this is where Georgia, because it had just been a slow decline from, the huge first half. They get out to this big lead, and then the entire second half was essentially Florida just slowly chipping and chipping and chipping away. And, when you got to about 8 minutes left and it's still a double-digit lead, and you're like, all right, I think maybe Georgia can just hang on, because at that point, that's all you're trying to do, right? Because it was obvious that they weren't going to keep shooting the ball as well as they were. I mean, through the first couple minutes of the second half, I mean, Georgia was shooting 66% from three. Like, as good as Alabama was in the volume of threes last night, I mean, Georgia was absolutely shooting the lights out of the gym in the first half. I mean, they were shooting over 60% overall from the floor. It was insane, and they just didn't quite have that in the second half. But, hey, you got the big three when you needed it down late, and you were able to kind of go on a run and, hit some big free throws and get some key stops. But, you give credit to Florida. I mean, they were down 26, and they came back and they did have the lead there with a couple minutes left to go. But, Georgia, this was, I mean, let's be honest, this was your season essentially in this game, because if you had let Florida come back and beat you, I just don't think you wouldn't have had the juice left to get into the tournament. But now, that looks a lot different. So I know, because I know Lenardi was on SVP last night after these games, and he had them move back up into they're still in like the next or first four out or whatever. So like they're right there on the bubble still.
Mm-hmm.
But this one certainly helped you out. And if you're able to get you would imagine another win here in the last 3 games, you're probably going to be going to the tournament. But yeah, that's not what you want from Florida. Talking about Alabama playing, okay, that's probably the best game you played all year. Good time to have that. Now Florida, at times, one of the uglier games they've played this year. And, I know, look, again, Georgia, we're talking about them as potentially being a tournament team, but this is not a great loss if you're Florida. I mean, I know it's on the road, but it's a Georgia team that has kind of been kicking rocks here for a few weeks. And, yeah, so again, I don't think it means doom and gloom or anything like that for Florida. The SEC is really difficult, but just in terms of bracketology, at this point, those kinds of losses they're gonna ding you a little bit compared to, when you look at somebody like Alabama, for example, who Florida had jumped on the seed line there for a little bit. You don't have a loss, I guess, of that level, right? If you're Alabama, I mean, you have a loss to Oregon, who's not ranked right now, but they were a top 10 team earlier in the season. So, yeah, but that's just how it goes in the SEC. But yeah, now if you're Alabama, and if you're Tennessee, maybe that game this weekend isn't the loser goes to the 2 seed and the winner goes to the 1 seed. So we'll see. But yeah, Alabama certainly got some help there, and it also helped Auburn, right? Because now, again, I mean, I guess if you were to, let's say you lost to Ole Miss tonight and then you lose to Alabama at the end of the regular season, okay, you could still split, but you have a little bit of a cushion now for the SEC regular season title.
Absolutely. And speaking of Tennessee, they knocked off LSU last night, 65-59. Maybe not the prettiest of games, but at this point, it's just survive. You get a win, you'll take it and keep pushing.
I was about to say, you look at what Florida did and you go,
yep,
I will take the 6-point win on the road.
Absolutely. And then the Gamecocks, they come back down to earth after pulling off the upset against Texas over the weekend. They take a trip up to the other Columbia, Missouri, to take on the Missouri Tigers, and they fall 101-71. And yeah, it happens. It happens. You were at the highest level. You beat Texas at home. You take that trip up to Missouri, and it was very similar to the Alabama game where it felt like Missouri just could not miss. And to the tune of 101 points, it's going to be hard to beat somebody. And South Carolina, you got your one. It's not looking pretty the rest of the way.
Hey, it's better than 0.
Exactly.
You'll take it.
You'll take it at this point. 205-834-9450. We'll get to your text message, your calls, recapping what we saw last night. Also take a peek at Auburn and Ole Miss coming up tonight. Will we see some more blowouts in the SEC?
I don't know, but those chants are going to be interesting.
Oh boy, speaking of Ole Miss, boy, that's Ole Miss is dealing with some things just internally. If you know, you know. 205-834-9450. We'll keep it locked right here on Morning Jocks and Jocks 94.5. Atta baby. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Set the tone this morning, baby. Welcome back into Morning Jocks. Let's go. Got a little Florida Georgia line playing, baby. If they don't get your blood flowing this morning, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order. And of course, you as well. 205-834-9450. Our wonderful listeners. As Alabama knocks off Mississippi State 111-73. Missouri takes on South Carolina, knocks them off 101-71. Tennessee squeaks by LSU 65-59. And Georgia pulls off the upset against Florida 88-84. Your text message is always welcome here on Morning JOX, 205-834-9450. Lewis texts in, he says, Missouri's only issue is there are no tournament games scheduled in Como. They're very strong at home. Yeah. That's fair. Everything's neutral site.
I was about to say, yeah.
But the thing is that shot, it travels at times.
I was about to say, they have the... I would just say this. Caleb Grill has March Madness darling written all over him.
If Missouri makes a run, we're gonna be that's gonna be the one we come back to. It's like, yep, he's got it. I can see the storylines now. Some of them just write themselves.
I was about to say he would be the leading scorer on a lot of mid-major teams. Like he would be right at home on a lot of those.
Averaging 40.
That's right. But yeah, no, I mean, good for Missouri. I mean, I think they're heading into the postseason. I think they're one of the more dangerous teams out of the SEC, no doubt.
You better hope your shots are falling. I'll put it like that. Joseph takes in and says, big win for Georgia at home against Florida. Yep. It's I didn't see it coming. I will say that. I thought Florida had reached the point where they go out there, handle their business, do what they need to do. But, I mean, Georgia, they jumped on them quick, and they never lost it. And I think that for Florida, it's just that gut punch of, man, we are here at the end of the season where you want to be trending upward, and it's just losses like these. It's like, it's the SEC.
Yeah, it is, and you know what you have. You know what you have coming up. You're going to have to go on the road next week to Alabama. Is one of your final 3 games, and that's certainly not going to be very easy. So, yeah, I mean, you're probably kicking yourself a little bit this morning if you're Florida. But again, at the end of the day, while yes, being a 1 seed is great, and it's something that you can brag about and make you feel good when you're filling out a bracket for your favorite team. But a 1 seed, a 2 seed, it's not a night and day difference. It's the same thing we were talking about with Alabama. Like, yeah, you would like to be a 1 seed, but if for some reason you do fall a little bit, again, like your floor is probably a 2 seed. So, I mean, it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah, David from Coleman, he's an Auburn fan. He says, Alabama beats up on mediocre teams. They play at Tennessee, host Florida, and at Auburn, losing 2 minimum. Hashtag they ain't like us. Hey, you.
They have 10 quad 1 wins.
Hey, just read them.
They have the second most in the country behind. Now, granted, yeah, behind Auburn, but.
Listen, I just read the text messages, man. I just read them.
I mean, your team's better than you beat them. Like,
yeah.
You can pound your chest about some things, but to just act like Alabama hasn't beaten anybody, like, have you watched them play? I'm gonna guess not. I'm gonna guess that person has not watched Alabama play basketball. Go out on a limb there.
Yeah, Drake, the Florida fan, he takes in, he says Florida will be just fine. Yeah, I have no worries.
Yeah.
It's just that you just stump your toe real quick. Just you're climbing up the mountain and you misstep real quick. It's all good. I think Florida still will handle their business on the way out because they're still one of the best teams in college basketball. But you just don't want to see that. You gave Georgia hope, and I think that's the biggest thing. Is one, you can look at it from an SEC's perspective of, okay, now you see how close the gap is in the SEC and what's made the conference look so good this year. But on the other hand, you're the better team, and it's just you let that one slip away.
Yeah, they just had kind of a funky season. I don't mean that in a bad way, but just when you look at some of their big wins and their losses, like you're the only team that's beaten Auburn in the conference. You have the best win in the entire country, arguably. You beat Tennessee by like 30, but then you also got beat by Tennessee by like 30 the next time you played them. You've lost to Georgia. You lost to Missouri, which doesn't look bad, but it was before we kind of realized how good Missouri was, I think. So it's just kind of, when you look at some of their big wins and big losses, it's like, man, this is the same team that went and beat Auburn in Neville Arena. And,
right.
They're struggling on the road against Georgia. It's just, it's the way it goes in basketball.
We continue looking at tonight's matchups in the SEC. Of course, 6 p.m. on ESPN2, which you can also hear on JOX 94.5 tonight. Pregame starts at 5:30. Ole Miss takes a trip to Auburn to take on the Tigers, and Ole Miss, a team that, when they have a win over Alabama, so they have the talent to get it done. If you're Chris Beard, it's kind of, okay, can we put it all together? And it's gonna take a lot because Auburn, the way that they played against Georgia, Janai Broome seems to really lock in of it, pretty much establishing that he is the best player in college basketball right now. And it's gonna take the rest of those guys. Like when I look at this game, it's not that I don't think Auburn will go out and win. It's just, when do we get the domination from the number one team? And I think that, I mean, it's kind of just cutting hairs. If you win, that's all that really matters. But it's, okay, how do you truly separate yourself even in the elite category, where instead of saying that there's a bunch of teams that could be number one, when are you going to turn that page of truly solidifying that, okay, we're going out here, we're showing that we are the best team in college basketball, and a win like this over Ole Miss can kind of catapult that. And as long as you go out and dominate, that's where I put the challenge on Auburn is, okay, you get them at home. We know how it is in Neville Arena. When are you going to have kind of like what you saw with Alabama last night? When are you going to have that defining just, all right, yeah, they're locked in. It's time to go. And again, Ole Miss is talented enough to beat you because they've done it. They've been on both sides of it. Kind of, again, when you look at the SEC, they've got losses that are just, head scratchers, but they also have some wins. It's like, okay, well, they've gone into Coleman Coliseum and knocked off Alabama early on. So I wouldn't necessarily sleep on Ole Miss, but I do challenge Auburn to go and just assert your domination as the number one team in the nation.
Yeah, I kind of look at this similarly to, how I looked at the Alabama-Mississippi State game going into it last night, where it's, all right, you're playing them for the second time now. The first time you played them, you had to go on the road. They put up a good fight. Padula had, I think, like 30 in that first game for Ole Miss against Auburn. Like, he had a great night, but you found a way to get a win on the road. You won 92-82 on the road, and now you get them at home. And, similar to, Josh Hubbard going off in the game when Alabama traveled to Starkville and kind of squeaked out a win there, you're just looking at it like, all right, we're playing at home. If we can limit the guy that scored 30 the last game, if we can hold him to 20, 15, something like that, we're going to be sitting pretty, right? We beat them by 10 on the road. So, you're looking at this, all right, coming into Neville Arena, yeah, we should be able to handle our business. No problem. But to your point, we have seen Ole Miss go on the road and beat one of the best teams in the country in Alabama earlier in SEC play. And, you just don't let your guard down if you're Auburn, right? That's really, the only way that I think you're going to get beat at this point is if, you just don't kind of show up. I mean, we saw a couple of nights ago, you can still find a way to win even when you're just not shooting the basketball particularly well. Granted, I think Ole Miss is better than Georgia, but you should feel pretty good about this one there at Neville. And again, as we've talked about with all these teams, I mean, nobody has an easy schedule here down the stretch, but based on what happened with Florida last night and Alabama getting another win, if you're Auburn, just keep winning, keep that cushion for the SEC regular season tournament in your favor, and you're going to be good to go. So yeah, I think it should be a good night for Auburn basketball. I'm expecting a big performance, and I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if they, beat them by 15 plus, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, Auburn's favored by 12.5. Again, for entertainment purposes, just kind of sprinkling that out there. The point total is 153.5. So just
that's a lot. But if what
you want with that information?
It's a lot. I don't know. If I'm a confident Auburn fan, I'd feel pretty good. I mean, again, like, beat them at 10 on the road. Now they're coming to your arena.
Home court advantage.
Got to feel good. Yeah.
Got to. Just taking a look at the rest of the SEC slate for today. Did I say it was Thursday this morning?
I don't know.
I think I said Thursday.
Is it Thursday? No,
it's Wednesday. That's my fault. It felt like a Thursday. Feels like a Thursday. But Vanderbilt takes on Texas A&M. That game tipping off at 6 p.m. as well on the SEC network. And Texas A&M, do not sleep on this Vanderbilt team. I'm telling you, you kind of dejected from that Tennessee loss over the weekend. Just give Vanderbilt some hope. And I promise you, they've shown it all season long. There's a reason why they're kind of one of those sleeper teams in the SEC too. It's if you don't play your A game, they can get you up out of there rather quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, now, you think Vanderbilt, they're probably pretty secure in their positioning for the NCAA tournament. So you're not, necessarily in desperation mode of, you kind of just take it up another notch because it's like an elimination game almost. But yeah, I mean, for Texas A&M, as we know with them, similar to Tennessee, right? When Wade Taylor and some of those guys are able to score and they're shooting hot, they're one of the toughest teams to beat. But when they're not, there's a lot of teams that can take them down. So going to College Station is not going to be easy for Vanderbilt. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason that they can't handle that one. I will say, I do think, just looking at the slate we have tonight, I honestly think we're all going to watch Auburn and Ole Miss, and I know that's the game we're, going to be the most locked into. But I think potentially the best game that you could have would actually be Arkansas and Texas at the
Yes.
end of the night, because that's a game where, those are two teams that, I guess Texas is in a little better spot than Arkansas in terms of seeding right now. Because I believe Texas is one of the last four byes, whereas Arkansas is just one of the last four teams in still.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to watch a game where both teams should be coming out with their hair on fire, like we need to make a statement here. I think this game could be get a little chippy, get a little messy tonight. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Texas and Arkansas, because that could be that could be a game we look back on in a couple weeks and go, man, the winner of that game is in the tournament, and the loser of it,
Yep.
maybe they stumbled a little bit down the home stretch, and they're going to be sitting at home or going to the NIT.
That game at 8 p.m. on ESPN2, and also the final game as well. Kentucky traveling to Oklahoma. That game at 8 p.m. on the SEC network. Oklahoma, I'm telling you, they
need a big win.
They need one. They need one. The sense of desperation is high down there in Oklahoma, but Kentucky, you should go out there and handle your business. I know that Alabama loss on the road over the weekend kind of gave you a gut punch, but you can get you a get-right game against Oklahoma, but do not sleep on them. That's the fun part about the SEC is even like every matchup, you're just thinking, okay, well, if you don't play your A game, you can be beaten, and it can get ugly. Like as Florida last night. They can jump on you quick, and it's like, okay, now we're playing. We got to play the long game and just try to chip away. But Oklahoma, they're a team that's kind of on the fence. If they get a win like this against Kentucky at home, the conversation begins again of like, okay, maybe Oklahoma is a tournament team.
They're projected in right now. They're 4-10 in conference play. Like, just think about that. They could make the NCAA tournament. Obviously, they're going to have to win some more games here in the next 3 or 4 games for them in order to secure that spot. But right now, with 2 weeks left in the regular season, they are 4-10 in SEC play, and they're projected to make the NCAA tournament. So just kind of a weird year. Don't know when you're going to see. Don't know when you're going to see something like that again. It's like in the good old. What was it? The Carolina Panthers that year that they made the playoffs when they went 7-9, and you're just like, I'm just happy to be here.
It should be interesting to see. 205-834-9450. We see your text messages with your calls. We'll get to them on the other side. Keep it locked right here on JOX 94.5.
6:37. Welcome back into Morning JOX here on JOX 94.5. Conrad and Damian here with you on your Wednesday morning, recapping honestly a pretty wild night of SEC hoops last night. Alabama getting that dominant win over Mississippi State. Florida falling to Georgia, mixing things up, shaking some things up there in terms of the NCAA tournament bracket, in terms of maybe Florida now going to fall and find themselves on the 2 line. Maybe Tennessee jumps up and finds themselves on the 1 seed line, but certainly Alabama and Auburn, as it stands right now, secure in their 1 seed. But we also had some SEC baseball last night. I just wanted to give a quick shout out. Auburn, they take down Samford last night. They moved to 8-1 on the season, so a very strong start for the Auburn Tigers. They're not in the top 25 this week, but you would imagine that them and the Crimson Tide are both going to be right there knocking on the door here in the coming weeks if they keep up their winning ways. But a big win for Auburn last night over Samford. And then Alabama, they take down Jacksonville State last night, 22-11. And, so Alabama, they're now 9-0 on the season. But quickly, I do just want to give a shout out. If you have not watched this kid play, but Justin LeBron, the shortstop for Alabama, this dude is an absolute stud. He's going to be, I'll call it right now. I would expect that this is a guy that you're going to see potentially a top 10, top 5 pick in the Major League Baseball draft for 2026. He's been absolutely tearing it up. He had 2 home runs last night, 2 home runs in the comeback win against Ohio State on Sunday. He's now tied for the lead in the country in home runs. He has 6 through 9 games to go with 21 RBIs, hitting over 400 to start the season for Alabama. So strong starts to the season for both them and Auburn. But yeah, Justin LeBron, if you're not familiar with him, I highly recommend you tune into a little Alabama baseball, because he's a special player. He's the best player that I've seen at Alabama in quite some time.
Yeah, he's got some juice. I remember being at the SEC tournament last year and just watching him, I was like, okay, he's got a.
I was about to say, you could tell as a young kid, you're like, yeah, you got something.
He got a little something extra. 205-834-9450. Your text message, your calls, always welcome here on Morning JOX. Going back to somebody, who was it? David from Coleman. He said that Alabama beats up on mediocre teams. They play at Tennessee, host Florida, and at Auburn, losing 2 at the minimum. He said they ain't like us. And somebody replied, tell Mr. Coleman, Bama will win all 3, and better hope we don't play Auburn in the SEC tournament, because Bama will be the number 1 seed overall. There we go. That's what I like to hear.
I like the trash talk.
I'm here for it.
I like the trash talk this morning. See, and my whole thing is, right, you have so many let's get more creative, right? You have so many angles from the Auburn standpoint of, if you want to slam Alabama or the other teams in the SEC, you have a right to do that. You have been the best team. No one's going to, no one's with a common sense is going to argue against Auburn being the best team in the conference this year. But, to go, that's just the lazy route to say, oh, Alabama hasn't played anybody. That just shows that you're ignorant. Like, if you're going to trash talk, let's get creative with it. Give me something I haven't heard before, not some lazy, whatever take. Come on now. We're better than this. I want better for you as an Auburn fan.
There we go. See, exactly. I'm with you. If you're going to be at the top, let them know. Let them know.
Yeah, pound your chest about the head-to-head win. Don't come out here and act like, who's Alabama even played? Like, either you haven't paid attention, so shut your mouth, or you're blind.
Exactly. Somebody texts in and says, if Alabama play like they did last night, if they play for the rest of the season, they'll go 6-0 before Selection Sunday. Do they lock the number 2 overall seed? I think they'll probably lock the number 1 seed if they go 6-0 the rest of the way.
I'll be honest. I do not think Auburn's losing the number 1 overall seed. No. Their resume is so stacked. Again, let's say hypothetically, all right, if Alabama wins the next 3 games, which would be huge, they still won't have as many quad 1 wins as Auburn does right now. So, yeah, no, I think I think they're set and good to go. And obviously, getting into the tournament play for both Alabama and Auburn, you want to win the SEC tournament. But, okay, maybe if you go and you lose your first game on Friday and it's kind of like, oh, okay, that maybe wasn't what we expected from them. Mm-hmm. Maybe that hurts you a little bit. But I can't imagine. I don't think the SEC tournament results are going to have that big of an impact one way or the other for Auburn and Alabama when it comes to seeding. And I think Auburn's got the number 1 seed locked up.
Yeah. Well, somebody texted in, what if Bama beats Auburn twice? I don't know.
It's possible,
Right.
but again, all right. So if they beat them twice, you would assume that they're probably going to have to do it in the championship of the SEC tournament, and maybe not, maybe in the semifinals. But I'm assuming the championship. And by that point on Sunday, the bracket's already been made. So honestly, whoever wins that game, they're already going to be set in their seeding regardless. So yeah, I think Auburn's good.
Danny from Jasper, he texts in and says, "Is the SEC basketball going to end up like SEC football at bowl time?" I feel like that was
Like in terms of we're gonna have so many teams in the tournament and a bunch of them are just gonna.
That's disrespectful, Danny.
Drop out.
No. We get at least. I think we'll get at least 2 teams in the Final Four.
All right, in the Sweet 16, how many SEC teams do you think we will have?
I'm going to say.
I'll go 5.
I was going to say 5. I was going to say 5 or 6. Now, don't ask me to name the 5, but I'll put it like this. I would say Auburn, Alabama, Florida.
I feel good about Missouri making it to the Sweet 16.
Missouri would be closer to 5, 6. I would say Kentucky.
Tennessee. See, I feel really good.
Sweet 16,
really good about Auburn, Alabama, and Florida in the Sweet 16. And then I think there's essentially like 8 other SEC teams I could see making it that far. And so if you just give, 2 of those 8 that are able to make it there, I think that would be pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like it would just be a huge bummer if you get all these teams in the tournament, we're sitting there in the Sweet 16, you got 3 of them, and it's like Auburn, Alabama, and Florida. It's like, okay, well,
right.
We thought you were the best teams, but kind of disappointing that everyone else dropped the ball for you. But I will just remember at the beginning, and I know it's been a while since, non-conference play, but the SEC absolutely steamrolled everybody in non-conference. So, again, I look at it like this. A lot of these teams, for the first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament, there might be a little bit of like, oh, thank God. Like, just compared to the matchups that they've had to play in conference play and then getting to the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament, there's a lot of teams, I think, that are going to look and go, man, this is the easiest matchup we've had in months.
Yep. And that's why I kind of like 5 just seems like a good solid number, but if it's more, I wouldn't be surprised, because to that point, it's they've already gone through the gauntlet of the SEC. That the fact that we're in the NCAA tournaments, oh, thank you. Like, okay, we can take a breath a little bit, because I don't have to play, the Auburns of the world or the Alabamas on back-to-back games and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see. 205-834-9450. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to our buddy Alan, who wants to talk some ball with us this morning. What's going on this morning, Alan?
What up, gentlemen? How are you?
Man, I can't complain about a thing.
Give me 4 teams in the Sweet 16. Bama, Auburn, Florida, Missouri.
Mizzou.
There's going to be a couple dangerous teams in this tournament between the St. John's, Michigan State, that Clemson. There's just going to be a couple teams that'll peck out, I think, some of the SEC teams between rounds, and I think only about 4 of ours are going to make a Sweet 16.
Hey, I'm here for it, man. It'll be...
Yeah, I guess the good thing is you're not going to have to play one of those teams until probably the Sweet 16 or
right.
Now, granted, the Texases and Oklahomas are going to obviously have much more difficult draws, but for the, again, even going to like the Mississippi States, maybe the Ole Misses of the world, Kentucky's, like these teams that are going to be top 6, top 7 seeds. I think they're going to have some pretty favorable matchups. But again, like, as we know, every year, you're going to get a Richmond or a Grand Canyon or a, whoever that comes through and just knocks some people's socks off.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. We'll continue with your text message, your calls on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 6:50 here on Morning JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order here with you to the top of the hour as you get you set for McElroy and Kublik in the morning from 7 to 10 a.m. And then we pass you off to three-man front from 10 to 2. And then the legend himself, Paul Feinbaum, the Paul Feinbaum Show from 2 to 6. So you want to keep it locked right here on JOX 94.5.
And speaking of three-man front, you can go right now on Twitter at three-man front. We already have our poll question up for the day. And it's just based on last night's SEC Hoops action. Did Florida's loss and Alabama's big win over Mississippi State, does that lock up a 1 seed for Alabama? We're going to talk about that, dive into some bracketology on three-man fronts. You can go ahead and go voice your opinion now, and we will dive into that at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and absolutely. Conrad asked the question earlier, how many SEC teams do you think will be in the Sweet 16? Dave from Winfield, he says, nobody's mentioning Texas A&M. The Aggies and the Missouri Tigers are two teams to definitely keep an eye on. But anyways, Roll Tide.
Yeah, again, I mean, I guess I kind of said it earlier. I just kind of view A&M and Tennessee in a very similar light in the sense that they're going to be physical, they're going to play good defense, and when the shots are falling for them, yeah, I mean, they are one of the better teams in the country. I guess I just trust Tennessee a little bit more, and I feel like they have a little more they just have more guys, I guess, that I've seen step up as opposed to Texas A&M, where it really does just kind of feel like the Wade Taylor show a lot of nights. And I mean, they have other nice pieces too, but yeah, I mean, Texas A&M certainly a team to watch.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's talk to our buddy Hastings this morning. Let's talk some ball. What's happening this morning, Hastings?
Yeah, hey guys. Saw you guys at Social Taco yesterday. By the way, if y'all haven't been up there yet, all the callers, man, go up there. It's a great time. Get some interaction. Conrad, Damian, the squad.
Hey, Hastings, did you get to go to the baseball and basketball game last night, by the way?
Did not make the basketball game. That was so. My wife went with me, and so it was a really fine line of even making it through the baseball game. Once we sat there for about 3 hours, I've never seen like 32 runs scored in a game.
Yeah.
And so it lasted forever. I ended up coming back yesterday watching the Hoops game at home, which was good. I'm actually headed up to Athens right now for a meeting. But no, hey, you guys mentioned LeBron. He's great. Hodo's great. Really, the offensive power for Alabama was fantastic last night, not only in baseball but in basketball. But have we heard from Don? Has Don called in yet? Because I know he was obsessed with Florida because they're the best team that's ever played basketball in the entire history of basketball. Has Don called in yet today?
He's right after you.
I wasn't going to say it, Hastings, but him wearing the Florida shirt
Don
yesterday may have been a curse.
Hey, Don, congratulations to your Auburn team being the number one team in the nation again. And real quick, guys, shout out to Pelham Gator. Hey, man, I hope you get to feeling better, man. We're thinking and praying about you, and we hope to see you back up at Social Taco soon. So, hey, appreciate y'all taking my call. Thanks, guys.
Hey, we appreciate you, Hastings. And, yeah, shout out to PG, man. Hope all is well. We're praying for you, thinking about you, man. Always can't wait to see you again. Let's go to Don. If you got anything you need to say off your chest, brother?
No, I got to eat crow, Damian. Florida did not look like the number one better than Auburn at all last night. So got to eat a little crow, brother.
Yeah, chew it up.
No. Hastings is right and everything. You know, Damian, of all the years I've been talking to you and Conrad and everything, I said some stupid stuff, buddy.
Listen, we don't take
really
we don't take tally. We just kind of just let you go.
I know, buddy. But yeah, on the Sweet 16, I think it's going to be 4.
Okay.
It's, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, and either Tennessee or Missouri. Somebody's going to get upset in the second round, in my opinion. Somebody in the SEC is going to get.
It's bound to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll run through the first game, but it's the second game because in the second game you'll have Alabama and Auburn. Both will have probably play the 1-8-9 game.
Yeah, but you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful in that first round matchup. You don't want an Ivy League school.
Yeah, I know.
I was about to say Yale's projected in the tournament again.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but they won't be a 16 seed though, guys.
No, they won't.
There'll be some other Ivy League school, maybe Harvard.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you, guys.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, I mean, he said it. He thought Florida was the best team. I'm like, oh, okay, just forget about little old Auburn. Forget about them.
Have some faith in your team, man.
That's all I asked for. That's all I asked for. Somebody texted in and said, imagine Bama has a full performance from Grant Nelson. He turns it
Maybe
on in
one
March.
day.
He turns it on in March.
Yeah,
It's all
maybe.
good. Patience, baby. Patience. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Those guys are next.